Well, welcome. We are so glad that you're joining us right now and excited that we get to come together for Shabbat. I bet you guys are too, because it's the day. It's a date. We have a date with Yeshua today. That's pretty exciting. And to get to do it together, that's pretty exciting. Hello, Connie. Hello, Eddie and Tammy and everyone else that is with us. Hallelujah. And Connie, I got your other questions, so know that. And hopefully everybody has notes in that have been mailed to you. Well, you should. Anyway, they should be there. But we're going to go ahead and open with prayer. Pastor John.
Father, we just bless you today and we honor you. We thank you for this gathering on the Shabbat. And Father, our hearts are just excited. We are excited as to enter into your presence, to hear the words which are a gift from heaven to us. That, Father, that our hearts will resound with it and will align with those words. That, Father, that we'd have ears to hear and eyes to see, that we would be perfect receptors of your word. And not only that, to store but those words, but also to be able to repeat your words of life as we frame it in everyday life. And so, Father, we just ask your blessing upon Pastor Sandi as she brings this Torah portion and the discussion, the midrash, all those that are here with us, that we'd all be able to just be elevated and to be raised up into your presence and to be drawn closer to you so we're ready for worship and to be able to enter in that way here shortly. And we just bless you and honor you in the name of Yeshua.
Hallelujah. And now we're going to begin by reading chapter 8 of Numbers, the Midbar. Yehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, "Speak to Aaron and say to him, when you arrange the lamps, the 7 lamps shall give light in front of the lampstand." And Aaron did so, and he arranged the lamps to face toward the front of the lampstand as Yah commanded Moshe. Now this workmanship of the lampstand was hammered gold from its shaft to its flowers. It was hammered work, according to the pattern which Yehovah had shown Moshe, so made the lampstand. Then Yehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, "Take the Levites from among the children of Israel and cleanse them ceremonially. Thus you shall do to them to cleanse them, sprinkle water purification on them, and let them shave all their body, and let them wash their clothes, so make themselves clean. Then let them take a young bull with its grain offering of fine flour mixed with oil, and you shall take another young bull as a sin offering, and you shall bring the Levites before the tabernacle of meeting, and you shall gather together the whole congregation of the children of Israel. So you shall bring the Levites before Yehovah, and the children of Israel shall lay their hands on the Levites, and Aaron shall offer the Levites before Yehovah like a wave offering from the children of Israel, that they may perform the work of Yah. Then the Levites shall lay their hands on the heads of the young bulls, and you shall offer one as sin offering and the other as a burnt offering to Yehovah to make atonement for the Levites. And you shall stand the Levites before Aaron and his sons, and then offer them like a wave offering to Yehovah. Thus you shall separate the Levites from the children of Israel, and the Levites shall be mine. After that, the Levites shall go into service of the tabernacle of meeting. So you shall cleanse them and offer them like a wave offering, for they are wholly given to me from among the children of Israel. I have taken them for myself instead of all who opened the womb, the firstborn of the children of Israel. For all the firstborn among the children of Israel are mine, both the man and the beast. And on that day I struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt. I sanctified them to myself. I have taken the Levites instead of all the firstborn of the children of Israel, and have given the Levites as a gift to Aaron and his sons from among the children of Israel, to do the work for the children of Israel in the tabernacle of meeting, and to make atonement for the children of Israel, that there may be no plague among the children of Israel when the children of Israel come near the sanctuary. Thus Moshe and Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel did to the Levites according to the command of Moshe concerning the Levites. So the children of Israel did to them, and the Levites purified themselves and washed their clothes. Then Aaron presented them like a wave offering before Yah, and Aaron made atonement for them to cleanse them. After that, the Levites went in to do their work in the tabernacle meeting before Aaron and his sons, as Yah had commanded Moshe concerning the Levites. So they did to them. Then Yehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, "This is what pertains to the Levites From 25 years old above, one may enter to perform the service and the work of the tabernacle of meeting. And at the age of 50 years, they must cease performing the work and shall work no more. They may minister with their brethren in the tabernacle of meeting to attend the needs, but they themselves shall do no work. Thus you shall do to the Levites regarding the duties. We're going to start there, and then we're going to do some more reading. But just as an FYI, there are 55 olive tables in this Torah portion.
That's a lot.
Yep, that is a lot. And I do not have them numbered as to how many are attached and how many are not. Now, it has been brought to my attention that sometimes when John and I speak and teach, that some people, it's above some people. Now, I want to just encourage you online, in the house, wherever you are, if hopefully we'll have somebody looking in the room, because I can't constantly look in the room on there for what's being written. But if we need to back up and slow down on something, just let me know. Say, hey, wait. Let's discuss this a little bit more, because I don't want to leave anybody behind. I don't want anyone to say, well, I have no idea what she just said. So please know that if we are in the place where it's just, we need to expound more on a subject, please let me know. I would love that. And it is not an issue. In fact, we're here to learn from each other. So that's what we're supposed to do. So please know that. Okay. So we are here in Beha'alotcha, is what some would say. When you set up, when you lift up, when you go, there's so many ways to look at this word. When you kindle can also be, it can look like that as well. But this follows on the head of the dedication of the tabernacle and the offerings brought by the tribes of Israel. And now it's shifting a little bit as Israel prepares to basically leave Mount Sinai, because they've been camped there a while, and they've been camped there a year actually. So everything has been done in this preparation, and it's been about a year. So we have all these details that seem to connect to the camp mobility, to moving the camp from one place to the other, a departure, so to speak. We have the trumpets that they're fashioning, and which calls the camp together and also departs and things like that. It says, hey, we're moving. But we also have we talk about the pillar of fire. Why is the pillar of fire there? So they can move, so they can go forth. And this is the first point that's really addressed regarding the lighting of the menorah, the lighting itself. And maybe we should ask, what does that have to do with the preparation of the moving the camp? Well, before we go anywhere, I think the light needs to shine before us for sure. So maybe there's a connection there. Maybe it's other places. But even in the midst of this, we see Israel yearning for what they once had. Or maybe not, because I think I'm going to look at it a little differently today when we get there. But we have this is a huge Torah portion when it comes to details that are happening. Are we going to cover them all? Probably not. We're going to get through as many as we can. Yeah. Because the bottom line is, he's given us this word to look at, to study, so that we can look and reflect in our own lives. We may point the finger at everybody else, but we really shouldn't, because the only person we can clean up, the only person that we can make right is ourselves. And once we make ourselves right, all we're going to do is have a heart to help others, raise them up, not to condemn them or point the finger at them, but to pour out everything, that abundance that we have in ourselves, out to those around us. And we need to remember that. Are we simply a vessel unto ourselves that's all about us? Or do we fill up so that we can pour out? Do we fill up with his word so that we can pour out? I think we fill up with his word so that we can pour out. We should duplicate ourselves, actually. Duplicate ourselves out of a job. So here we go with this word. And some of this may be very familiar to you. If it is, it probably is to a lot. But we may need to hear it again. The more we hear it, the more it gets into us. Because in this Torah portion, when thou kindle, when thou light up, when thou lightest, is it just talking about this physical piece, this menorah that's in the sanctuary? No, of course not. It's relating to you and I. We never need to forget that. So we have that basic word lightus. Let's look at that. And we've heard this word. It's H5927. And what is it? Allah. And it means to what? Anybody? To aliyah. Yes, to go up, to ascend, to climb. It has this idea of going to a higher place. So let me ask you this question. Have you been called to go to a higher place? Yes. Yes. There's a song that we sing. I'm trying to figure out what it is. It just came to my mind. Come up higher. Now, this isn't scripture, but those songs that we sing are words that we need to heed oftentimes. Come up higher. Oh, it's running. I'm running after you. Oh, that would have been a good song to do today. Come up higher and hear the angels sing. Come up higher and hear my word. Come up higher. Well, we have been called to raise up, to ascend, but really most of us get down low to the ground in the way we live, in the way we think and we speak. It's not that that's where we want to be, but that's where we have this tendency to go. But that's not what this word is about. We're supposed to be lighting up. We're supposed to be lighting up ourselves. We're supposed to light that menorah within us, that light, and go to the higher place. The verb here, this Allah, is used in relationship actually to a person's appearance before Yah. How can we appear before him if we don't rise up? In fact, what do we look like if we don't rise up, make ourselves ready? What would we look like to him? Would we look like those who he would say, depart from me, for I never knew you? Or would we look like those whom he would say to us, well done, my good and faithful servant? We all praise the latter. But if you're about to go before a king, how do you make yourself ready? If we're going to go before a king physically here, what are we going to do? A physical king of this earth, or somebody, if it's not a king, it's somebody of authority and power. Would you just come as you are?
There's a protocol.
Exactly. I believe you come and bow before him. See, I love that, Irma, because I think here in the Western culture, we've forgotten about protocol. We've never had a king or anything like that. Hallelujah, because Yah is supposed to be our king, and he is. But we have forgotten the protocol of a king. I was in a class, a worship class at Christ for the Nations many years ago with Vivian Hibbert. Amazing worshiper, teacher, worship lady, just moving in the spirit. And she would always say, as a worship leader or a pastor, you need to play what Yah is saying. How is he coming in today? Because how we approach him is always, as you said, Irma, we need to follow the protocol of a king and bow in reverence. But sometimes he comes. He wants to be in our midst as the mighty Lion of Judah. But sometimes he wants to come as that living water. But if we have not made ourselves ready, we will not know how he's approaching and what he's wanting to even do in our lives, because we're so stuck in our own circumstance and what's going on with us that we miss what the king is trying to say. Rick?
If you treat him like a commoner and do not give him the reverence and the respect that he deserves, how can you expect to receive his blessing?
See, that's good. And that really goes along with what I'm saying. How can you expect to receive his blessings if you treat him as a commoner? But also, if you're not close enough to see how he's approaching you, and he's saying, today I'm raining this healing power, this miracle power in your life, and you're waiting for something else to happen. You're holding your hand over here when he's ready for your hands to be raised and surrender in this position for him to reign upon you. Then you miss what he has for you that day, because we've not ascended. We have not made ourselves ready to appear before him. Exodus 34:24 says, for I will cast out the nations before you and enlarge your borders. Neither will any man covet your land when you go up to appear before Yehovah your Elohim 3 times a year. So here we have those foot festivals of Pesach and Shavuot and Sukkot. Sukkot, yes. And Linda says the reverent fear of Yah. We've talked about that. I need to preach on that again. So there's a protocol to approach him at the festivals even. Are we talking about putting on a suit and tie and all that? No, I'm not. There's a protocol of the heart. But at times, maybe there is a time when we dress differently because we're in the king. If we were in the presence of a physical person of authority, we would not wear our cutoffs and our old t-shirt. Twyla.
If you're opening up, let's say to have in an hour, we're gonna open up and there's gonna be 30, and I'm gonna use kids, teenagers, just because it's easier. If they're out here on this step doing all kinds of things, they're not ready when it's time to come in because, I just hit her and somebody else just, so it goes for even the very beginning of walking in the door, as well as we become reverent before.
Okay, let's take that thought. I've told you the story when I've talked about the fear of Yah, when a big time speaker he was in South America to speak, and he stood at the podium to start the message. He was introduced and he stood there for quite a few minutes, 12, 15 minutes, and the people were still talking and doing their own thing. Worship is over, et cetera, although you shouldn't be doing that during worship either. And he said, why would Yah show up where I'm not reverenced? So let's put it this way. If we are to be light and we are addressing the protocol of a king, he's called an appointment on Shabbat even. If we're still stuck in our own agenda and telling our own story and circumstance, not saying that there's not a place for that, because there is. But let's say in different parts of the day is for different things, I would really say. But are we being light when we have people coming through the door, maybe new people or things like that, or people that are unfamiliar, and we're so stuck in telling our stories and talking through worship, doing our own thing, even the message on our phones, texting and playing games? Does that diminish the light and the message of Yeshua for those that are unfamiliar to us? It does forever. Absolutely. We used to address this more. And when we have a division, something else going on, when we have been called to meet with him, or somebody else, I'm going to take along, I need to minister to them on this thing in the middle of the ministering that's going wherever. Anyway, when I'm saying that, I'm meaning the music, I'm meaning the whole thing, not just the word, because it's all equally important. Then it's division. It's two visions going on. That other thing can be addressed, but not at that time. Or you have.
So in other words, you're saying something like there's a side conversation going on.
Or we've had people come to the back and say, well, I'm ministering to them on this thing.
Yeah, people ministering. I'm praying over this person. And while the rest of the service is going on, I'm praying for this person because, and it's like, okay, I mean, it's important to pray for people, but is that the flow of the ministry at that point in time where that person can be prayed for in a time where it fits in, as opposed to I'm doing my ministry here and I'm doing my ministry here. Well, the service is going on. That's a diverted thing, taking advantage of the ministry purpose and gathering and for one's own purposes. And that's what is where the risk is.
Well, and also I used to tell this to people, if you're talking and having side conversations and doing your own thing, you're stealing from the people around you, no matter who you are. If I'm doing that, I'm doing it.
I've seen some high up people that you are
right.
hard to choose.
And you're also giving an example that's not that important. Oh, what they have to say, what's going on in the service right now, what God is saying through them, that's not important. Is that going up? Is that preparing yourself before Yah for these days? I mean, yes, we're talking food festivals, but I'm also talking about Shabbat.
Because I think it really goes along with that whole course of the unity of the brethren. And that's what's important, because some people actually get under compulsion. Well, I was being led by the Holy Spirit. I had to pray for that person right then and there. And y'all never works in the assembly where somebody will be under a compulsion to divert from what the Father's actually doing in the unity of that congregation.
But I will say, when we were at Christ for the Nations that one year, and it was the middle of the message, and that guy from the balcony got up and gave, I think it was in tongues, and then there was an interpretation. There was a reverence that came over the place, even though that seemed very out of order. I mean, y'all can do things. Don't put him in a box. In general, that's not the case, because what happened, I think it was Lamar Boschman was the one speaking, and a guy gave a word, I mean, in the middle of his teaching. And again, that is the only time I've ever seen it done where that was appropriate. There was a hush and an awe that came over all 3,000 people, and there was silence for a while. And then you begin to hear weeping and other things. His presence was so thick, and Lamar knew, and he's a worship leader, teacher, things like that. He knew to sit back and let y'all move. So I'm not saying that it would never happen, but I'm saying that's very rare. I've been serving y'all for almost 60 years, and I've seen it happen one time where it was appropriate. So,
But there is something as well, and it really goes along with what you're saying. This is out of the Qumran libraries, and you've probably heard this within Scripture. I don't know exactly where this was taken from, but I thought this was very interesting, where this is part of when they would have their gatherings. Think about this. They're having their gatherings. This is their attitude when they would come into their gatherings. Who is like you, God of Israel, in the heavens or on earth, to do great deeds like your deeds, marvels like your feats? And who is like your nation, Israel, whom you chose for yourself from among all the nations of the earth, a nation of holy ones of the covenant, learned in the law, wise in knowledge, hearers of the glorious voice, seers of the holy angels, with opened ears, hearing profound things. You created the dome of the sky, the army of the luminaries, the task of the spirits, the dominion of the holy ones, the treasures of the glory in the darkness of the clouds. You are creator of the earth and of all the laws of its divisions in desert and steppe, of all of its products and fruits, of the circles of the seas, of the reservoirs of the rivers, the chasms. It goes on and on. There is just this reverence, awe of this that was encapsulated right there. That was they understood that reverence and the holiness of Yah that they were being elevated to, and so that they would not be so carnal, but be elevated, understanding if he is so magnificent, then in order for us to be even to come into that glorious presence is to remove ourselves from our carnality and understand that this amazing invitation has been extended to us. What a protocol.
I think the bulk of people that I know wouldn't even know how to be in that service, even though we would all like to be. A service like that is, wow.
You know what? I will say here, we've had some amazing services, and there is a difference when you have worshipers versus people that are just showing up because they either want the message or there's a special speaker.
Or they're just too interested in themselves to quit talking.
Or too interested. But at Christ for the Nations, this is what was always amazing, and this is why I still love, and I would love to take our group there just to experience a worship weekend. I mean, we used to take our worship team there, but when you gather people, 3,000 worshipers to get 3,000 people who love Yah enough that they want to get on their face and worship him and love on him and hear what he has to say and see his miracle power. It is so, first off, as a worship leader and pastor, it is so easy to lead in that. It's hard to lead when you have a few people that want to worship and everybody else that just wants to do their own thing. But it's so, so, so powerful. But we've had that. We've had, I mean, Yah's different. Every meeting's different. Even on, for our Shavuot meeting, we had worship here. How would you describe it, Irma?
It was just heavenly.
It was powerful. It was amazingly powerful. And Yah was there, and he wants to do that with us, but he's looking for people who have made themselves ready, who are ready to ascend, who are ready to go to that place, and he will meet us there. He says he's enthroned in our praises, and that's not what this is about, but yet it is very much part. If we go back to the first century believers, it was very much a part of what they did when they met with the king. I mean, the banner went before. The king is coming. The banner goes before it, and the flags are shown. The king is coming. The king is coming. And there's so many things that happen, and we need to make ourselves ready. And I love that. But we also need to remember that in this Torah portion, when it's talking about separating the Levites and making them wave offering, it's not talking about Aaron's family. It's talking about the rest of them. It's not talking about the family for the high priest, et cetera, et cetera. It's talking for everybody else. But then you cannot miss if it's this. Let's go to 1 Peter 2:9. It may be in your notes, or you can read it in your word. I don't know. Would somebody read that for me?
But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, his own special people, that you may proclaim the praises of Yah, who called you out of darkness into the marvelous light.
What does that remind you of? Royal priesthood? That's you and me. We're to attend him. Now, the menorah was attended to daily, but when were the offerings? When was the Olah offered up? How often was that offered up? That sending off, that offering that was made to simply thank him. How often was it offered, everybody?
Wasn't it daily?
It was, yeah, twice. Think about that. Think about that. So we are to be reminded that in the midst of this, we are the ones filling that position, because this is about you and I. Yes, it's about the protocols of the king. It's about the protocols of the tabernacle. But if we're the living, walking, breathing tabernacle, it's about you and I. And that's that royal priesthood. And then this reveals too that we too are charged with approaching and ascending to this light. Who is the light? He is. We are charged with ascending to the light, so that because we have the purpose of determining the rest of our day. When do we approach him? At the end of the day, when the day's gone? Or do we give him the first? We give him the first, we give him the best, because I don't know about you. I don't know how to operate my day without him. I don't know how to operate and live without him. In fact, too often I do it this or that or whatever happens, and I haven't gotten into his presence, and there's a big difference in my day. And I see, even though you give that time, it's just like tithing. You do it first. You don't wait till there's money. You do it even when there's not, because then the rest of the money works out. It's your day. There's no time. Well, somehow the time is going to work out when you give him your best, when you prepare and you ascend, when you approach the king. Now, and we're giving that example to future generations. And I want us to remember that. Let's go to Proverbs 20:27. Proverbs 20:27. Anybody?
The spirit of a man is the lamp of the Lord, searching all inner depths of his heart. That describes the human soul as a lamp of Yah.
Okay. Why would we be a lamp? What's a lamp supposed to do?
Burns light.
When do you use a lamp?
We can't see.
When it's dark? To light the way? When you need the light? Use it for so many reasons. But if we're the lamp of God, we should also be lamp lighters. It says in Luke, I can't read this guy's name. I put his name in your notes. Kindling the spiritual potential lying dormant in those who have not yet awakened to the presence of the sacred. What does that mean to you? Are we supposed to be like a match or a light that kindles somebody else's light? See, this goes back to what we're saying. How can we possibly do that when we show no reverence or respect or even excitement about gathering into his presence because we've forgotten the protocol of the king? But yet, when we also realize that we're charged with the duty of getting somebody else lit up, that weighs heavily on you because he's giving you that. Well, so-and-so, they need to do this for themselves. Yes, they do. But in the meantime, you stand in the gap. It's just like praying. I preached that message probably 8 years ago about prayer. Need to do that one again too. Update it, and about prayer when we stand in the gap for somebody that can't pray for themselves. And it's the same way. Here we have this obligation, or not obligation makes it sound like drudgery, but it's not a drudgery to be a light into the world, to be a light in the midst of those around us that don't know him, that can't light themselves. We should make ourselves so lit up that we have enough light for ourselves and everybody else around us. Rabbi David Wolk Blank says, when lighting up another person, stay with them until they are lighted up with their own power. Don't just shine your flashlight on them and walk away. I love that. So here's this idea that we're supposed to teach and give the word. And when I'm saying that, I'm talking even just in our daily conversations. And we may be saying the same thing over and over, just like a child. You know, I've been going over scripture over and over with Amarillo, and now she's feeding it back to me in logical places to bring correction to Sandi, to me. You said, I'll give the example I told earlier. I was telling her that I do not want her crossing a main street without me, any street, but usually I'm right there, but I don't, like there's an alley. She's gotten to where she'll look, no one's coming, and she's ahead of me because she's riding her bike 2 to 3, at least probably closer to 3 miles a day with me. So she's riding her bike everywhere. But she got to a street, and I saw there was nobody coming, but I hadn't given her permission to cross. I said, I do not want you crossing a street without me. But why, Sonny? I said, and I used the wrong word. I said, that makes me scared to think of that. And she turned around and she said, but God did not give you a spirit of fear. I'm telling you, that child but see, I've been working that word until that lamp is lighting within her. How many times have I been quoting the same scriptures over and over, and you think, wow, are they even getting it? And then all of a sudden at 6 years old, and maybe it's a person young in the word, whomever it is, they begin to pour that word back. That's what we need. So in this verse, it says we don't just do or not this verse, but this saying, we light them up, and not like a flashlight, but we keep lighting them up until they can have their own light.
So that's the habit.
So it's the habit.
When Brenda was 3 or 4, she was in the shower and I was fixing my hair out there, and she was and I said, I'm not understanding a word you're saying. And she says, that's because I'm not singing to you.
Yeah, she's speaking in her prayer language to Yah. That's right. Exactly. See, I love that. But how often, we think about that with kids, but let's not just think of kids. John and I, Pastor John and I are here. And as I said, you may hear the same things over and over, but we are a hard-headed people with thick skin that don't listen. And if we listen, we quickly forget, or our life gets busy, or it gets hard. And all those things that we heard from the word through this teacher, through us, through anybody else, sort of go out the wayside when the pressure's put on. So we keep doing the word until you're walking the word yourself, and then you're teaching that. See, we're all supposed to be doing this, and that gives us a different perspective. Oh, here's the way. Go on now and take it. That's not the way it's supposed to be. Yeshua walks with us the whole way, but yet he's called us to walk with our brothers and sisters. Now, there are some that we see for a brief moment, but this idea that a spiritual leader is relevant to us, very important to us. We don't get rid of them because we want to be our own leader, but it's very important to us because they help us through our hard times. They help us through recovery, addiction, standing by each other as friends, as a pastor, as a teacher, as whatever it is, when light seems impossible to light on their own. And sometimes when we're with family, there's none of us usually at the same time are going through horrific circumstances where we need to light the way because it's so heavy. We help along with that and we pour in that word, but we've got to be lit up and we've got to make sure we're ascending. We've got to make sure we are reverent. So reverent before him and that we've heard his voice. How do you want to reign on us today? How, Father, do you want to be with this person? What can I give them? Pour into me. And hopefully we're already full, so we hear his voice and we're ready to pour it right back out. I just think that gives us a whole different perspective that we have a responsibility to be alongside our brother and help them get this message until it clicks.
You're like a match that strikes their flame.
But then we can't leave the flame. We have to keep pouring oxygen, the breath of life into that flame until that flame can be sustained. So I think that's a really cool picture because that the moment, if you're going by what you said, Jackie, the moment the wick catches fire, that joined flame of the match and the candle, they are brighter together. It sparks and ignites. But what is the biggest holdback for us to be able to light that way, to ascend, to light that menorah, to be a light to others? What is the biggest problem? It's us. It's our flesh, right? Now, when we think about this Torah portion, it also touches place on some Moedim. We already talked about the 3-foot festivals just briefly in a brief sentence, but there's this repeated idea of atonement, the verb atone, and covering. Because we're going to talk about the clouds here soon. That's covering. We talk about the blood. That's covering. You look at Yom HaKippurim, that day of coverings, the day of atonement, the blood. We talk about even Yom Teruah has sort of a connection with the trumpets, but there's clouds. There's other things there. And you've got blood, oil, the change of clothes, all these kinds of coverings, the sukkah at Sukkot. We've got all these coverings that are necessary for us. Or this idea that we need to be covered. But unfortunately, we like to be out on our own. Okay. I'm thinking about something right now that just popped into my head. Are those coverings for our protection? Is the blood for our protection? Yes.
Yeah.
I brought up what Joe had brought up last week when I gave the message about the teacher that astral projection, where that teacher astral projects into her students' houses, into their rooms, so that she can touch them and send her message, connect with them, et cetera, because that's what our society's like today. I gave that message, but she couldn't touch. Anytime there's a praying parent or grandparent over those kids or the blood, and somebody's praying, either the blood was covered, and if she tried to touch that blood, it would hurt, it would injure, or there was somebody guarding. There was covering. So this idea of covering is really, really important, that we need to be covered. What are we covered with? We're covered with him, yeah. But we're covered. We're also have the Moedim that are fueled by the Holy Spirit, and they cause us to be one with one another. But also we're covered by his blood. We're covered by the cloud, which is his glory. We've got so many ideas of the coverings, and we need to make sure that we're covered. But unfortunately, we want to be an audience of one. And in a way that could be good when it's just you and Yah, but in worship. But we want to be an audience of one, that we don't need anybody's covering and we don't need anybody's accountability. We can do it on our own. Well, guess what? That's your soul. That's your nefesh. We've talked about this so many times. Hopefully y'all know this by heart. But when you look at this nefesh that's singled out, that's in need of what? Atonement. What's atonement? At one minute, we're at one with him. We're covered by the blood, the redemption, with the sin, everything has been taken care of. That nefesh, what is that? The nefesh is which is the flesh, by the way, folks. Your mind, will, and emotions, etc. Is that the firstborn or secondborn? Y'all know this. What is it? I mean, nefesh is the firstborn. Your spirit's the secondborn. I got to get it right. So your nefesh, which is the firstborn, is always fighting that secondborn, the spirit, because the firstborn, the flesh, doesn't get to be is not The flesh gets to be the ruler of us a lot, but it's not supposed to be that way. It's not supposed to be that way. And this flesh is what's getting of the way of the light, the lamp shining brightly, because we keep letting this flesh, our mind, our will, our emotions, this appetite, this desire, this intellect to rule, it's getting in the way of the Spirit doing what the Spirit wants to do. And so we understand the symbol of the Ruach is what? Head, authority. The symbol of the flesh is what? I've told you guys this before. It's your heel. Okay, so let's picture the head, the authority, the Spirit. Is that supposed to lead you, or the heel, the flesh, that which is most close to the ground, like the beast? It's supposed to be. We're supposed to be led by His authority, by the Ruach. But when the heel and the nefesh, which represents our appetites, emotions, desires, and intellect, gets in the way, then the soul of the man is ruling us, and that's where we're seeing from. Now, how well do you see if your eyes are on the feet of the heel of your foot? Well, you can't even see. You can't see where you're going. You can't. In fact, our feet don't have eyes. Which true eyes? So what are the true eyes? Are the eyes that open this with? The Spirit within us. It's different. That's what's supposed to be leading us. I mean, it would look really weird to have feet with eyes on them. But even if it did, let's say even if they did, they couldn't see much because they're at the ground level. They can see the dust that's right in front of them. It doesn't work. So here we have this idea that most of us are walking around like that with our flesh leading the way, which can't see anything. We can't see where we're going. We can't see where we've been. We don't know the ways of Yah because we're letting something else. The heel is no place to view where you're supposed to view the world from. That's not where it's supposed to happen. But how many times does emotion decide your path? I'm going to ask that. How many times does all the emotion decide where you go and what you do?
You know, just negativity. I've been around and I have to, watch that sometimes. But just your spirit of negativity. If you're negative to somebody all the time, you know what they're going to do? They're going to back off. Or if, like if you, whatever demons you fight, and I do believe they're that, because you open the door because of what you do. But, even negativity, somebody that's always, oh man, I just can't stand this, blah, 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 blah. And you're so blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. I mean, just our tiny words are the flesh. And we have to war on that in our brain every day. Not to go there. I mean, it is a battle.
It is a battle. So let's think of the shadow covering of the flesh. Were you going to say something
Well,
first?
I was just going to say, considering what type of beings we are, is that we are a soul that lives in the body that has a spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and that spirit is eternal. And we've been discussing this over in the Enoch series about the evil ruach, the evil spirits, which is the spirits of the dead giants. And when it's a really, really amazing thing when we begin to understand that these spirits intend to communicate. And what do? They're always trying to communicate to something that is willing to listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a flesh that likes to listen to it, our carnal man, our carnal nature, our fleshly nature. And then, but on the other side, if you think about it, then doesn't the Spirit of the living God? And then also the scriptures talk about angels that are spirits. They are spirits as well. They put in that same ruach. They are good spirit. Are they not? You always see the picture of this, the devil and the angel on the guy's shoulder. Honestly, that's actually a pretty good illustration about that. If our heart and our mind is not guarded, that we are easily put under the influence of the wrong spirits, these evil spirits that are trying to just cause us to move from giving Yah honor in all that we do in our lives. That is their sole purpose, is to divert us from
Get us
giving,
off the path.
to
Yes.
get us away from giving Yah the honor that he deserves. And so a willing flesh, that fleshly carnal nature, is like, I just want to do my own thing. It just wants to do it. It's rebellious. And yet we're trying to, what are we doing? We're going through a disciplinary process in order for to shut that part of our nature down so that our spirit hears what the voice of Yah is saying to us. Because how many times do we think we hear something in our spirit and say, oh, that can't be God, or that can't be anything. And in reality, a block down the road it was. Or, I say that as in a driving term, but we find out later on, God was really speaking to me. He was really speaking to me. And that part of me actually was hearing. It was actually in tune with that. And so this whole disciplinary process of developing our spirit, actually it's developing a sphere, the atmosphere around us.
That's good.
Creates a block from these evil spirits from being able to penetrate, to try to pull us away. Their very purposes, they know that there's a God. Just like these Satanists and Luciferians that are leading this world, they know there's a God. Their whole design purpose, though, is to dishonor the kingdom of Yah, just to do it because Yah deserves it, and they hate God that much. So we have to really be aware from those little tiny inklings. And then it's like, how is this affecting my attitude? All right. How negative am I going? Am I going there? Or is that person that's speaking that negativity, what influence are they under? And maybe I just need to get out of there. I need to get out of that influence. That influence is coming through the voice of another person.
Yourself apart, yeah, as much as you can.
Mhm.
And the spirit, that's how we fight this thing, with the spirit.
It
But we
is.
also fight it by putting it in us all the time. That is why this Torah study is so important. That's why when we, get together, any way you can get him in to get those things away from you, you need to do,
So what Pastor Sandy has here in the notes about the quote about shining this flashlight, don't just shine it on them and walk away, because that hurts. When you get a flashlight shining in your eyes, it hurts.
It's true.
But you can take
That's true. It's
take
blinding.
that moment to shine the light so everyone can see.
Mm-hmm.
And when you walk away, if that person still wants to be in darkness, that's their choice.
But if they don't, then it may be your job to be alongside them for a while and
Yeah.
continue to make, to make that
It should
happen.
definitely make them think.
For sure. So we're talking about covering. Ultimately, not leaving an opening in for sin in our lives, like when Pastor John's talking about demonic entities and things like that we all need deliverance from.
Yeah, nobody's perfect.
Well, no, I mean, everybody, I've told you before, we haven't met anybody that we've done full deliverance that hasn't had to at least be delivered from about 60 of them, because they make kingdoms in you. But we've had many more than that, and a lot more than that. The 60 is a small number, actually. It's a very small number. But we need to be covered. And ultimately, if we follow his word, is that a covering? If we follow his word, is there a way for the enemy to get in? But when we leave a chink because we didn't do it here or there, then the enemy comes in, and we need something stronger, because we can be held captive by that very thing, whatever it is. And then our flesh is in the way, because our flesh is being led by that thing, and it's overruling and overpowering the authority that's supposed to be in our lives. So let's look at Jeremiah 31:6. Actually, I'm going to read it because I don't want us to read 6 through 16. It says, "For I am the father to Israel and Ephraim, my firstborn. Hear the word of Yehovah, O nations, and declare in the coastlands afar off, and say, He who scattered Israel will gather and keep him as a shepherd keeps his flock. For Yehovah has ransomed Yaakov and redeemed him from the hand of him who was stronger than he. It takes something stronger. Well, who is stronger? It's Yeshua. It's his word. Who is the word? Who is the flesh? His blood. See, and even in the Moedim, because he is part of the Moedim, he is all of these things. The Moedim, it gives us the shadow of the reality of the redemption of our flesh, of our nefesh, because it's held captive by what? It's held captive by the heel, that skin, that hard skin on your heel. But yet there's something sensitive on our foot as well. And so you think about that, atonement, kafar, atonement. It's an authoritative covering of redemption for a captive flesh, nefesh. And it carries something in its root, kaf, Strong's number 3709. But it's from 3721. And it when you look at it, we hear that kaf. Well, it's the hand, the sole, the palm of the hand, the hollow of the hand, power, the sole of the foot, hollow. I want us to just put all these together because it's going to paint a picture. And it's not a lot, guys, because we keep hearing this word hollow objects, bending, thigh joint, vessel, hollow, hand-shaped branches or fronds or palm trees. So when you carefully read all these meanings of kafar, that covering, that atonement, there's something that emerges there. And it is this vessel, the human is a vessel for what? What are we supposed to carry within us?
His spirit.
His spirit, his light. But what is light? The Torah, his word, which is Yeshua. We keep forgetting. Well, you don't. But the Torah is Yeshua. Yeshua lives within us. And we're supposed to carry because he is the covering. Because we are the vessel for the Torah. Yet, so he is within us, but yet he's the one covering us. Now picture that. He's within us, but he's covering us. Which is it? Yes. It's both. It's both. Because they are bent in that they bend the will of the spiritual head. Who is our spiritual head?
He is.
Well, he's supposed to be. But who, in reality, if we look and deep dive into our lives, who is leading us? Is it our flesh, our desires, our emotions, our will, or is it him who is leading us? Because it all goes hand in hand. Because when we walk in the covering authority of the Spirit, his Spirit, then we have power and we have the heart of the Torah and we're able to be the light and we're able to kindle the light in others and maintain it. And we're able to enter into his presence with reverence and see and hear his voice properly.
You know, if you look at
how
that
are we
word,
ascending?
I'm sorry for cutting you off. When you look at that word bend, think about that. You're going to bend down. Yeah, I'm going to bend down. You got to learn how to bend.
Amen.
Because if you're straight up all the time, you got a problem. You got to bend to his will. And his will says you are to be compassionate. You are to not rule. You are to let go and let him.
See, I like that. Because let's go back to the definitions of the covering, the atonement, that kafar. Part of it is to bend. Are we supposed to bend as the true wheat, not today's genetically modified wheat? True wheat bends, but the tares stand. But true wheat bends. We are supposed to bend, and when we bend, he
We're
has
getting
completely
down, getting
overshadowed
out of the way.
us.
You know, get down, get out of the way, and let him come in.
Amen. Get down. I love that, Jackie. Get down and get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Get on our knees and get out of the way. Humble yourself before Yah.
Yes.
Because then we have the covering authority of the Ruach, his power. He is working in us. And in the palm of the Cohen's hand, of the priest's hand, is that vessel for anointing, that cleansing oil. And we see that in Leviticus 14, 15 through 18, and 26 through 29. But the kaf, the palm of the hand, is related to those palm branches, which what does Israel do with those? Well, Israel celebrates the Feast of Sukkot for one, and many other things. But this cupped hand, that cupped hand it is upon the head of that beast or that animal when there's sin and there's an elevation from sin. There's that cupped hand one more time. So it's really demonstrates the submission of the flesh to what? His authority.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we're elevated and restored, by following his authority. We need him. So, I mean, there's so many details we could go into that, but we need to be covered. I want to be covered by the blood. I want to be covered by him. I want him to do a mighty work within me, but it doesn't just stop there. And then, of course, we can relate with Allah. We've already spoken just briefly about Olah, that offering that is prepared, that offering of thanksgiving, that holy burnt offering.
Sure.
We're not going to get into it now, but I want you to understand those two go hand in hand. So if we're to ascend, how do we ascend? We get burned up. We throw ourselves on the altar and we get burned up.
That's good.
Think about the incense that rises straight to him, because we are to be a sweet incense to him. What we give, our worship, our prayers, that incense, harp and bowl, that incense offering. Just briefly, the menorah itself, that physical menorah. The high priest is supposed to light it. It's supposed to be lit all the time. And who is our high priest? Yeshua. He is the provider of light, yet as we've been speaking, one light lights the rest of the lights. So that light's within us. And so this menorah is very symbolic of what it offers us, because he is light. He is the shamash. He is the center. He is the center of us. The menorah's lamp, we're supposed to be turned in the direction of the main trunk of the menorah, which is him, the shamash. So there we have Yeshua one more time. And so therefore that shamash, but also call themselves the servant light. Servant light. So it serves all. So Yeshua says, I'm serving all of you. So what should our response be?
We want to serve him too. Did you
Exactly.
know in the where they keep the menorah lit? What did he tell them? Keep this lit all the time. Well, if he wants the menorah lit all the time, don't you think he wants us lit all the time?
Well, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
We are supposed to be lit. We're not supposed to, the light is not supposed to go out.
Right. That's what
So should it be for us. We are never to let the light out. Now let's go to the flowers. We're talking about seeing, we're talking about light, we're talking about ascending. Now think about the flowers on the menorah. They're almond shaped. What does that almond shape look like? Picture an almond. What does that look like? An eye. Absolutely. So you have this almond shape, which is look the shape of an eye. And the Hebrew word for almond is shachad, but it's also a word for to watch, to be alert, to be on the lookout. So what does that say to us? So the almond is in the shape of an eye, in the very word in Hebrew also brings to it this idea of watching and being alert and on the lookout. Well, should we not be on the lookout? Should we not be the watchman on the wall? Should we not guard our gates? Yeah. So these words share these meanings because of this eye shape. Now there's 22 eyes. There's 22 flowers on the menorah. So it's like 22 eyes. Well, what would that mean? Well, there's 22 letters in the Aleph Beit. What is the Aleph Beit? That's in your notes, I think. It's what we would say the alphabet, the Hebrew alphabet. And so the Hebrew alphabet is what makes word. The word is made up of the letters. The word is Yeshua, and he gives us eyes to see. He gives us that discernment, because when I think of seeing, I think we can see a lot with our physical eyes, but the discernment that we have, that ability to see beyond what is actually there, is very important. So that menorah symbolizes the word of Yah, and of course our Messiah Yeshua, because he is the word. Let's just remember John 1. Anybody want to quote it for me? Anybody?
In the beginning was the word, and the word was with God.
And the word was God. Amen. Yes. So here we have our Messiah, who is the word. Messiah is the beginning and the end. He is the Aleph Tav, or in the Greek, he is the Alpha and Omega. And I gave you some scriptures just to remind us about this lamp. Being a lamp is so important. I'm just going to go through. You guys can read the references there in your notes. The word is a lamp unto my feet, a light unto my path. The law of the Torah and the testimony, if they speak not according to the word, it's because there is no light in them, because they don't have the Torah and his testimony. John 8:12. Then spoke Yeshua again to them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. John 9:5. As long as I'm in the world, I am the light of the world. Then Mark 5:14-16 says, you're the light of the world. Let your light shine before men that they may see your good works. That goes back to what we just talked about. Shine before men. 1 Thessalonians 5:5, you are the children of the light and the children of the day, and we are not of the night nor of darkness. And then you go to Revelation and you have the 7 golden lampstands, the 7 congregations. You have all of this in the midst. We need eyes to see, because when the light is lifted up, the 7 lamps, the congregations give the light of the menorah, the whole world. But since we've been talking about our flesh being in the way, I want to jump over to, it's not that we're not going to go back. We'll go back maybe, but I want us to jump over to chapter 11 because go ahead.
Can I throw something in that's just kind of, all right, it's just a thought. Okay, allow my weirdness. Okay. All right. And
Okay.
you were talking about almonds. Almonds are like eye-shaped, and this is the picture of the menorah, and there's 22 of those things on the menorah. All right. Okay. Immediately my mind went to this description in heaven that John in Revelation gives, and the 4 living creatures. It's also in Ezekiel. And the 4 creatures, each of them having 6 wings, are full of eyes around and within, and day and night they do not cease to say, holy, holy, holy is Yahweh. Okay. Now picture this. The lamp is supposed to be lit 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's got these almonds, these eyes all around, embedded in this menorah. And then we have this picture of these living creatures with their 6 wings, with their eyes all around, and they're this whole element of worship that's coming out of them. Do you think this might be a little bit of a reflection of what's going on in the heavenly tabernacle? Because the thing that this earthly tabernacle that's being described here is a replica. It's from the blueprint of heaven. Moses got it from heaven. And I'm just thinking, what are we being shown here?
And they worship 24/7 in heaven, and different types of worship too. I think there is just this direct, I don't know, fiber optic line, this direct connection with this earthly location and this heavenly location, that one is being reflected in the other. And I'm saying it's coming from top down, by the way, and that's the way it is. And then what happened? Then the authority of the temple and the tabernacle was usurped, and everything changed, and they would no longer have that direct connection anointing from heaven. They even eliminated the priesthood. The rabbinic Orthodox rabbinic Judaism even eliminated the Levites. They substituted the Levites.
And you're supposed to be even more careful than that.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, I want to do just a brief side trail, because I want us to stay on that. We're going to go to chapter 11 and read it. So I want somebody to get ready. But this thing with the priestly calendar and what has been on is creating. We talked a little bit about it last week. It is creating a division in the community, but it's weird because calendar issues have never created, like, we can all have different calendar ideas and have been in the same congregation before. It's not that way anymore. I got notice that a big ministry is now taking things I've said, videos, and connecting it vitriolly and attacking. It's okay. If you're not being attacked, then maybe you're not on the right path.
That's true too, yes.
But it just shows how divisive this is. Can I say about? I want to.
Yeah.
And I'll say this: the person who brought this to our attention has not been invited to Revive because of it. Which makes me question. You have all of this over here, and then I'm sorry. It seems so logical, as Mom said today. She says it just makes so much sense. It's so easy. It's just,
Well, and it explains why the Lord's Supper was 2 days before.
Oh, it explains everything. But remember when I brought you through the timeline, even in the wilderness, how they were on this thing but guys, it's dividing our community, and maybe the remnant's smaller than we even thought.
Which it shouldn't do that. Because if we keep our eyes on Yeshua, that is the number one important thing.
Yes.
That we follow Torah and we keep our eyes on Yeshua,
Well,
and we remain teachable. And that is the number one thing. And we got to be careful of the leaven of the Pharisees, because rabbinic Judaism has such a huge influence.
It's like it's almost
almost
demonic, I would almost say, because it's gotta look.
And that power is very strong. And that was exactly the battle that Yeshua faced. And those are the ones who murdered him.
Yes.
So, I mean,
Pharisees and Sadducees.
so they wanted him.
I don't
out of
want to
the
be there
picture.
long.
So anyway, this is really
It's a side trail.
it's a side trail, but
Yes.
it's very important. It's very important that we understand this is such a battle between
It's
the
between
sons of
light and
light
dark and the sons of darkness.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's how when Eddie did our teaching, he was talking about the sons of light and sons of darkness.
and I'm telling you, I don't want gray in this area.
I don't want gray, and I sure don't want darkness.
I don't want to live in the
But
sunset or the twilight of the day.
let's
I
go
wanna
back
live
to the
in full light
flesh.
of the day.
Here's one of the things that makes change hard, because you have to relearn and rethink and redo and swallow your pride.
It's like-
As a leaders of a ministry, I'm not trying to toot our own horn, but John and I are very teachable. And when we mess up, how many times have you guys heard us say, well, we were wrong? We have said that. I'm not saying that we say we're wrong all the time, because we don't have it. But when there's things like this, we'll come up and say, guys, we had it wrong.
Well, when we decided we needed to be on this new calendar, you said, hey, it's like, well,
Yeah, they
no,
did.
at the point of your walk, you were
Well, that, we
wrong.
knew what we knew when we knew it. But the minute we found out truth, we're like, we're not staying on a wrong page. Eddie Chumney, we talked about this. He says, I wrote a book on it. But I was wrong. But the bottom line is we have to remain teachable, and we
Yes.
have to be ready. We have to be moldable and movable. Now,
Can you
but the
see
heart of-
that book that say revised edition?
but the heart of it is that flesh in us doesn't want to humble ourselves. The flesh in us, how easy is it to say, I messed up, I was wrong? It can be pretty easy, but it's not. People,
It depends on how much they have invested into the.
I'm not
one-
just talking about that. I'm talking period. I know people that refuse to say I apologize, or they'll say I'm sorry, but they aren't really, because they keep on, and they refuse to, and they really even refuse to say those words. But when you're talking about the leaders of the ministry, it could mean a loss of income. And that's the flesh. That goes back to the flesh. So
It
I want
takes
us
courage.
it takes courage. Exactly.
And it's a pride factor too.
So I want us to go to chapter 11, because I don't think we can disconnect the flesh that we've been talking about and ascending from the grumbling and complaining that we read about one more time in chapter 11. So who would like to read that for me? And I'm reading it because we need to hear those words, because it applies to us. How many here have grumbled and complained at least once this week?
At least
Probably.
once. At least once.
Okay, well, Irma and John and I and Jackie, we raised our hands. Okay. So, anybody want to read that for me? It's Numbers chapter 11.
But the people began complaining about their hardships to Yehovah. When Yehovah heard it, his anger flared up, so that the fire from Yehovah broke out against him and consumed the outskirts of the camp. Then the people cried to Moshe. Moshe prayed to Yehovah, and the fire abated. That place was called Taberah, burning, because Yehovah's fire broke out against them. Next, the mixed crowd that was with them grew greedy for an easier life. While the people of Israel, for their part, also renewed their weeping and said, if only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we used to eat in Egypt. It cost us nothing. And the cucumbers and melons and leeks and garlic and onions. And now we're withering away. We have nothing to look at but this manna. The manna, by the way, was like coriander seed, white like gum resin. The people would go around gathering it, would grind it up in mills or pound it to a paste with mortar and pestle. Then they would cook it in pots and make it into loaves that tasted like cakes baked with olive oil. When the dew settled on the camp during the night, the manna came with it. Moshe heard the people crying, family after family, each person at the entrance of his tent. The anger of Yehovah flared up violently, and Moshe too was displeased. Moshe asked Yehovah, "Why are you treating your servant so badly? Why haven't I found favor in your sight so that you put the burden of this entire people on me? Did I conceive these people? Was I their father so that you tell me, carry them in your arms like a nurse carrying a baby to the land you swore to their ancestors? Where am I going to get meat to feed these entire people because they keep bothering me with their crying and saying, 'Give us meat to eat'? I will carry this entire people by myself alone. It's too much for me. If you're going to treat me this way, then just kill me outright. Please, if you have any mercy toward me, and don't let me go on being miserable."
All right, we're going to stop right there for now. Okay. Can anyone relate to Moses' feelings right there?
It's like wham, 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 wham.
No, but guys, we say wow, 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 but guess what? That's us. How many times have you
Yes.
just felt
Yes.
overwhelmed?
I mean, just think about it though.
Overwhelmed.
I mean, he had the biggest load in history, probably.
Oh, we can't imagine.
Mhm.
We feel like that sometimes in our own families, where it's like, we're doing our best to live, and then we find opposition or apathy, even just apathy within our family. Oh, you can live passionately like you are, but okay, we're here, we're listening to you, but we want them to come with us, right? Passionately. And because we know when we look at the scriptures and we look at the history of it all, there's passionate living for Yah. And I think that's significant.
One of
Rick,
the things-
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
You think one of the things,
It's fine.
the passionate living and all, sorry.
We look out and we think, okay, we're gonna step into this. This is good. It quickens our spirit. And yeah, there'll be some, but they'll all come around. We tell ourselves this, and now we're to the point. You want to hurt and feel bad and feel good and all at the same time. And now we've really had a look at what being the remnant is.
True. It's
That's
true.
why I like the cars and trucks we fill up. How do you have to? You go a couple of days, you fill them up. Go a couple of days, you fill them up. Well, we can't even go a couple of days.
That's
If
true.
you're fighting your flesh, you got to go to him some way every day.
Every day. Rick.
So where Moshe made the statement right here, try reading it differently. Say, Yeshua heard the people crying, and read it that way. And see if you put a different perspective on it. Maybe that's how he feels that. Maybe that's the wound that we put in him, how we've hurt him, or how they hurt him here, and how we hurt him every day. And think about, do we think about him having feelings? Do we
It's
think
true.
about that he can be hurt? Do we think about his love being turned, and all of a sudden how inadequate that is and everything, what we're saying to him?
That rejection. I mean, the rejection we give you.
We're all wounded to some level. That's why we have to go to him, and we have to walk in forgiveness. And I'll be honest with you, I don't do that all the time.
But you need to.
Yes, but am I wrong? Yes. And that's the key, because when you forgive somebody that's wounded you, and I've got several woundings over the years, okay, but it's like a freeing of everything, your soul and everything, when you forgive. So, and that's been my greatest, what would you call it, thing to walk through is forgiveness. But people are wounded, strike wounded.
Wounded people hurt people.
Yes. So I mean, it is
Hurt people hurt
tricky.
people. Right.
But that's how you get over that.
Irma.
I often wonder what I would have done if I would have been here. Because sometimes I'm pretty weak.
Me too.
You get too hot or
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Seriously, yeah.
We're hungry and sleepy, things like that. I'm like, we really can't blame these people. I don't know what I would have done
See-
going around that
Yeah.
desert 40 years. My goodness.
I've even told John, I've said, I hear about people in other places that congregate throughout the world, specifically in China, where they'll travel all night walking.
Yes.
And then they're in this little cave-like place, a hidden place. It's different a lot at different times, but there's no heating or air conditioning, et cetera, et cetera. And they'll stay for 2 days straight in that little tiny place where you're elbow to elbow with another being. And I think our congregation, if it's too hot, they gripe. If it's too cold, they gripe. If it's taken too long, and instead of hungering, that goes back to when we went to Christ for the Nations. There would be a line 2 hours before service started because everybody wanted to be in the front. That's how excited we should be to gather.
Yes.
Everybody not
Yes.
trying to get people here pulling. Come on, join me. We should have people waiting, and we ourselves should be waiting in line because we want to gather in His presence. But I even told John, I said, we're on a budget. And I did this on Shavuot. I said, do not turn on the air conditioning. I don't care if people get hot. I told him that. I says, we're on a budget right now. I said, they can handle it. And I've thought, what would we do if we left it at this and people just had to get a little hot right now? How many people say, I'm not coming back. It was too hot.
Brother Young tells about the gathering of those Chinese people where the people are so close, the speaker can touch the first row of people. They're all standing. And they said, don't you need to take a break and sit down or something? No, we'll have time for that later.
They're so
They
hungry to
didn't
gather.
want-
They're so
They
hungry
didn't-
for that
from
word.
daylight to sunset and beyond into dark, they wanted it, and they could rest later.
And we have people that, and Rick, you had something. We have people that they're watching the clock because it's just taking too long. Rick.
Well, you talk about relating to that. Just remember when we was at Sukkot and all the flies and the heat, and it had been 2 days since we had a decent shower because that thing would only spray out and last for about 2 seconds when it was trying to wash you off. We complained about that and thought, man, we have to give up all of our good stuff. But
And then I complained about the complainers. I was like, those people, everybody needs to get a clue. We're at Sukkot.
well, I think that he's having us practice there. He's putting it on
Yeah.
because
Right.
when he says, okay, it's time to go, the people who say, oh, this is too hard, let's go back to our house and the air conditioner. We're going to have people that do
What are you going to have people? What are we going to do when we have to go back to no air conditioning and no? And how dare us if we don't have the comforts and the things that we want when we gather, whether it's at a feast day outdoors or whether it's in a place like this? How dare us complain? So let's go to this because that's our flesh. How can we ascend higher, have ourselves prepped to be in His presence? It all goes back, this whole big picture, because we're murmuring, complaining, because it says here the mixed multitude complained. I think we need to look at that mixed. Why does it say mixed? Because there's a little bit of mixture in us left. Let's forget, ethnicity, forget that. They're mixed because they've allowed their flesh to rule in areas of their life and instead of the Spirit ruling in all areas. Tammy.
Going to Sukkot, you learn how to adjust to be comfortable. You know what you can take that will give you the comfort, but yet you can still camp.
Yeah.
I think
We
people
may
are.
not have that though.
Irma, then Jackie.
Sorry, Irma. Go ahead, Irma.
Abraham always says that I wouldn't have made it in the desert. No, because he was in the military. They learned.
You had to learn.
They trained really hard and they were thirsty and they were hungry. And this man, he's never cold and he's never hot. And if it's just leftovers all week long,
He doesn't complain.
He doesn't complain.
Wow.
Really, he is an extraordinary man and he always teaches me, but It goes 1 year.
And that's why he's there. He's going to continue to teach, right? Because we get that light.
You would not have ever made it in the desert. He always tells me that.
That's sad,
and I'm
but
like,
we
oh,
all
no,
need to do
no.
that.
Jackie.
You know, when I was a very young girl, I went to Mississippi. Okay. My grandmother had some relatives that had money, then she had relatives that were poor. We went across a barge to get to this place where they lived. They had an outdoor toilet. They did not have air conditioning. They did not even have, I think they might have had fans. But this, you know how the humidity is in the summer there? You can cut it with a knife. And we survived. You know, I think, and like right now, the Lord is did you say he's training us up right now? Or you did, to learn how to not deal with, I thought, because I have not listened to the TV there's some people that when they get up, they turn the TV on and they've got that stupid thing on till they go to bed. You know, I have gotten to where I'll go maybe not till, I'll turn it on about 9 o'clock for an hour, okay? 8 o'clock, something like that. But I don't, and that's not every night. You know, I'm not going to say I never watch it 3 or 4 hours. You know, it's been a long day and I'm tired or whatever. But the Lord is showing us how to deal with these things. And I mean, what are you going to do when you don't have your computer, your phone, your iPad, your whatever? You know, you better be learning how to entertain yourself, because I believe why some, and it says men, but this is for women too, that there's going to be people that die because they're going to be in shock. Oh, I just watched this movie, okay? And it's about these things right here. And, what's the name of it? What's the one that played with the women down south a long time ago? Julia Roberts is in it.
Oh, Steel Magnolias?
Okay, she's in it. And then there's this nice tall he's anyway, y'all need to watch it. And it's about
If you don't know the movie.
I can't remember the name of it. He's thrown out they go out to the country for their own vacation, and then these people that were renting them show back up, and first they think they're, you know, lying and all that, but then they become really close. But the city at the end gets annihilated, New York, okay? But there's things that they show you that are going to happen. And it just come out and it's on Netflix. So if you get a chance, I
Okay.
guess it's not going to do much good if I can't.
No, but if somebody sees that, they can get, because I want us to get back to the mumbling.
But I mean, it is good now. It is exactly what's going to go down.
You've had experience.
Is that the Fallout series?
Fallout? No.
Okay, that's where everybody's in the bunker.
You have
They-
had experience.
they-
because we didn't
I'm gonna
get
not
air
give it away.
conditioning until then.
I didn't have air conditioning until John and I got air conditioning when we
Still
moved to this house.
You still don't.
But when I didn't have air conditioning until we moved into the house we're in August 4th of 2004. So that was the first
we
air
have-
conditioning.
And in fact, I call that out a lot with the family. And I'll say, you know, so many 40 years, 60 years, whatever it is ago, you wouldn't have had air conditioning
That's
in your
right.
car.
That's
All you could do is have wind.
But I will say this, houses and things were built for no air conditioning then, so there was airflow. There's not now. So. But
Breezes and for the big porches.
yeah, they were built to have that airflow.
Our house
So-
is not.
No, our house is a box, but hallelujah for it. Anyway, so this mixed multitude that we're talking about, I believe it's describing us because we have this mixture within us that's still not all the way out. It doesn't matter that we've left Egypt. We've left our old flesh. We've said we're following you, Father. It doesn't matter that we put the blood of the Lamb on our hearts. It doesn't matter that we've been baptized in water, and hopefully many of us have been baptized by the Spirit as well. It doesn't matter that we've got the commands and his testimony with us. We still manage to find something to complain about. But I believe some say, well, the biggest complaint was they were tired of the manna. They were bored with that. Others say, well, it's because they had to prepare it. So they had to spend more time. Well, anything worthwhile is worth your time. You're going to need to prepare. You're going to need to do. Others, hold on. I want to finish these thoughts. And Others say, well, it's all about the food. It's because they want to meet. But I think really their biggest was complaint is they're now under an authority. The word. I can't tell you how many times I've seen and witnessed people don't like to be under authority. And now they have Yah saying, you need to do this and this and this and this with your life. Why? Because he loves us and he knows what's best for us. But they didn't want to be under the authority. So there was really this complaining that started and spurred from there. And they said, in Egypt, we had this. Well, in Egypt, we didn't have that authority. Well, they were always under an authority. And I will tell you this. When you say, well, I hear people, well, that law shouldn't apply to us, or that's just too hard. No, it's not. No, it's not. And I'm not talking about like all of them all together. This one, here's the one specifically: eating, tithing, gathering, the feasts. People don't like that stuff. And probably the one that people have the hardest time with is tithing. Nobody wants to tithe because their pocketbook is their God. Sorry, if you're not tithing, you're not under God's authority and you're not following his way. You are sinning.
That's the truth right there.
And he says you're under a curse for that. But nonetheless, I know that's harsh words, so please just don't throw things at me. But here's the thing. We don't like being under authority. And you look at the show Survivor, if anybody steps up to be an authority or a leader, they kick them out because I want to be my own leader. I want to be my own authority. And the people, the mixed multitude, because there's mixture in their heart, doesn't, and yes, it can refer to the mixed too, but we're not going there right now. We're trying to apply it to our lives. We don't like having to necessarily, well, it's uncomfortable having to fast that day. Well, it's uncomfortable having to give this. It's uncomfortable. Well, first off, if you're not following his instruction with your heart, then there's an issue that you need to go back and check because you're still in your flesh. And we need to say, hey, why am I having these heart issues? Because we need to go back and get in the word. Because a lot of times it goes because you haven't been spending the time you should be in the word. You haven't been spending the time you need with him. And so you have this idea that these people on the outskirts of camp, where they were consumed first. Why? Because they were the furthest away from him. We get consumed because we've walked away from him. He hasn't walked away. We've walked away. And we're so far from him, and that grumbling and complaining, there's a spirit. There's a spirit of criticism. It's been in our family before, and you got to get rid of that. Yes, that's part of it. But you're going to have to discipline yourself out of that. You're going to have to nail that stuff to the ground. You're going to have to stop following your flesh, and you're going to have to watch your words. And here's the thing, folks, just like we all we've all grumbled and complained this week. Would that we would be a people that would learn to not do that. We do, because we miss the meat of the flesh. That meat is flesh. We miss the flesh. It feels good to be led by the flesh. It feels good to have that flesh petted. It feels good to sit back and just skip that and not do that. Or not, it feels good to sit back on my bed and just do what I want on Shabbat and not gather with his people. I'll be honest, it'd be a lot easier for me to just sit at home and rest, quote unquote. But yet we're supposed to gather. It's a date with him. And when I get ready to go on a date with my husband, I make myself ready. I get so excited, and when he comes through the door, if he says he has a date, if we've made a schedule, he comes through the door, I want to be all ready. So when he sees me, I knock him on the floor. Does that happen? And he'll go, wow, there's my bride. Well, that's what Yeshua wants from us. But we're still so full of the grumbling and complaining because we're serving another master. Be aware of naysayers in your life. Be aware of grumbles and complainers. Be aware of those who are criticizing things here. Be aware, because we need to be thankful for what he's already given us. Father, you've given me this. You've given us a building and a place to be. You've given us this family that reaches beyond Amarillo, beyond the United States, into Canada. You've given us, and beyond that, you've given us this family that's connected us all together. Right. You've given us a house. You've put food on our table. You've given us family. But we are finding things to grumble and complain about. How can he ever increase? People hate to be under the authority. They hate, but yet we become part of the naysayers. So we become the problem ourselves because we're really longing to do our own thing, our own way. We need to be satisfied with what he's given us, his timing. We need to be patient because he knows what we need. Now, remember, when the children of Israel cried out for things they needed, he didn't punish them. He gave them what they needed. But now they're crying out for things they don't need because he's already provided. Do we cry out for things we don't need and then wonder why he isn't there and why he hasn't done it? Because we're rejecting him, we're rejecting the manna, we're rejecting the word, we're rejecting our spiritual bread because he knows what's better for us, but we think we know better for ourselves what we need. So Yahweh, what does he do? He gives them what they want, flesh. And he says, I'm not just going to give you a day's worth. I'm going to give you, you're going to be eating it for a long time. And if he'd rained it all down at once, the people got sick because there's no refrigeration. What do you think all those quail did? Yuck. Ugh. So, but before they left their teeth, they began to chew it. Some of them even died. So the place where these people died was called the the graves of greediness. Imagine that. Would you like to be known as a grave of greediness? Because we're not content with what he's given us. We're not content with where we are. Well, we shouldn't be content with where we are because we should want to go further in him. I know I've got both of you. I'm still remembering. But we make this unwittingly mistake in the name of Yeshua saying, oh, we want this. Maybe God's preparing you for something. Maybe you're suffering because of your own sin, because of things you've done. Maybe you're suffering because of the sake of righteousness. Maybe you're out of balance in your life. Maybe Yah's patiently waiting for you to get your priorities in line before he can give you what he wants to give you. But your priorities are so messed up that he can't do anything. And he's saying, come on, get your priorities right. And I can pour out. I can bring the provision you need. I can bring the blessing you need, but you're in the wrong place. But regardless, we've got to remain humble, and we've got to thank him for what we have and where we are, and be sure that we're walking in repentance, and so that we can go into the inner court. That greed and pride don't consume us. Are we grumblers and complainers? John, Pastor John.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about that whole idea of grumblers and complainers. So here they are in the wilderness, and they're complaining they don't have the free fish or the leeks or the garlics or anything like that. It's like, no, what they're really complaining is that there are people in the wilderness that no longer has Walmart.
But it's easy.
Tell it.
They don't have the big box stores, and it's so convenient.
They gotta go cook.
But they complained in Egypt, and you brought that out, Sandy, and so if they complained in Egypt, why? Because they were enslaved, and they carried the same spirit of slavery with them into the wilderness, and that's why they continue to complain. And we've got to recognize that if we have a complaining spirit, we're under a spirit of slavery, and that if we're free, because Yah has set us free, he who Yah has set free is free indeed. So if we're free indeed, then we need to recognize that when we're complaining, we're actually betraying our own freedom.
That's good. And
so I think we need to know that a free person is not always comfortable, but a free person is. I mean, think about this. Okay, so in tithing, this is how I see it with my work. As I tithe, I get more work.
Yep.
There's just a direct correlation. And then I get overwhelmed with work. And it's like,
I just keep doing it.
And so it's like, okay, it's great to have this work. And then stuff gets delayed. But then I keep keeping favor. And I mean, like a client that I hadn't had any work from in several months, all of a sudden it's like sent me a whole bunch of stuff. And it's just favor, and it's like overwhelming, but I'm not going to complain, because this is part of that flow. It's part of that blessing. It's part of the freedom and of knowing that the Father is watching out for me, and I'm not having to enslave myself under someone else's authority.
I'm going to have Twyla go first, so you got yours, and then Jackie.
I was just going to say something, what we were talking on earlier. As far as what I watch on Netflix, don't give y'all the wrong idea, because I am very picky about what I watch, because there's a lot of trash on there. Well, I don't want somebody to think I'm
they don't.
Watching trash Friday night and then come into Sabbath Saturday.
No, Twyla, no.
Years ago, when I took my job, 43 years that I spent here. I had to learn. I had to get stuff down because I had a lot to do. I did a 12-hour day and I had a lot to do. And so I started making lists. And I have had some situations going on the last few months. And so the lists I can't even remember, but I got them out and I dug them out here. And it'll take, when I made these, there's like 5 or 6 every month. And these back, when I was working in here, even a couple of these few months ago, I laid them aside because of all the confusion that I was having. But they take things like criticism and complaint and all these things one at a time. And I go over them with the Lord and I tell him, please help me today. Do not let me be this way or whatever. Like in your case where you work, I need more strength. I need strength, make my hours good. I used to go to bed and say, I've got to hurry up and get up because I've got work to do. So my day, instead of with 20, they would be these little big short days, but I got that work done. But
It's true.
we're human. And if we run across one of those, and I've got 4 pages of them tied, just as tight as I can tie them. But as they come, new ones come in, if I'm not perfect on the other one, and I never will be, I have to squish it in to go with the others. But I'm not strong enough to remember everything. I'm not like you. I can't pray words so fast that they can't be spoken. So I have to take my little sheet of paper. But it might be that everybody needs maybe a piece of paper with a list on it. Because this is important, what we're talking about.
It's real important.
We've got to make it work. And that's why I originally crammed it in. If I don't get up at 3 o'clock and do this till 6, I won't have time for the Lord. And he needed the first time. Well, this being retired has kind of got me all jumped up. Other things too. But I'm looking forward to renewal in all these situations. So,
Renewal and restoration.
Well, the more we journal anything, it's going to sink in more.
well, this is
So
the
that's
same
a
thing
form of-
every day. all
Yeah,
of
that's
it.
a form of journaling when you're writing down and getting with him. Yes.
I have a lot of that too. But these are just simple things.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We're going to go backwards now to chapter 9, and I want to read 15 through.
Oh.
Go ahead.
So we're going to go to chapter 9, verses 15 through wherever. I just wanted to say we're still having prayer here on Mondays at noon. And this last Monday was off
Powerful.
the chart. So we'll put it online, everybody that's joining us that want to join with us at noon on Mondays. And wasn't it, Jackie?
It was like, yeah,
just the
the-
presence of the Lord
yeah.
was all over the place. So
no words.
just want to encourage everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Numbers chapter 9, verse 15.
Let's start with 15 through 23. Who'd like to read that?
I'll read it.
Okay, Irma.
On the day the tabernacle was put up, the cloud covered the tabernacle. That is the tent of the testimony. And in the evening over the tabernacle was what happened to be fire, which remained until morning. So the cloud always covered it, and it looked like fire at night. Whenever the cloud was taken up from above the tent, the people of Israel continued their travels. And they camped wherever the cloud stopped. At the order of Adonai, the people of Israel traveled. At the order of Adonai, they camped, and as long as the cloud stayed over the tabernacle, they stayed in camp. Even when the cloud remained on the tabernacle for a long time, the people of Israel did what Adonai had charged them to do and did not travel. Sometimes the cloud was a few days over the tabernacle according to Adonai's order. They remained in camp, and according to Adonai's order, they traveled. Sometimes the cloud was there only from evening until morning, so that when the cloud was taken up in the morning, they traveled. Or even if it continued up both day and night, when the cloud was up, they traveled. Whether it was 2 days, a month, or a year that the cloud remained over the tabernacle, stayed on it. The people of Israel remained in camp and did not travel. But as soon as it was taken up, they traveled. At Adonai's order, they camped, and at Adonai's order, they traveled. They did what Adonai had charged them to do through Moshe.
All right. So here what did you hear? Word did you hear the most?
Travel.
Cloud.
Tra-
Traveled? You heard traveled the most?
Travel.
I'd say cloud and power work hand in hand.
Well, but I'm going to focus on cloud for a minute. Now, remember way back when, all those decade plus ago, man, it's been a while, that Eddie did a teaching on how clouds and glory are synonymous with one another. So think about that. The cloud, when his glory moved, they moved. And when you think about fire and that cloud, they're sort of, that's like glory. That's like his presence. When his presence
Like
moves,
heaven.
we go. When his glory moves, we go. How many of you want to move wherever his presence is? So many of us like to hang back at what it was before. Oh, but and that's good. It's our testimony of the past.
Yeah.
But I want where he is at
New.
now. His glory was there right then. His cloud was there right then, but he's moved here now. And I want to go where that cloud is and hang on to the things I need to hang on to the past, but I need to stretch forward to the new things he's got for the present too.
Get out of the box.
Yeah. Anyway, that's not what I meant to say. That's what I said. But anyway, so when we look at clouds, Anon, number 6051, cloud, cloudy, from the root meaning to make, appear, produce, spring clouds. And it has this word picture of that as a womb or a well that receives the seed or the word. To become the tent of witnesses. So Israel has to learn to become a womb for the word. So we go back, it's over every Torah portion. Why does he keep talking to us about receiving the word, living the word, being the Torah, being the light? Because that is the essence of what we're supposed to be and who we are and what we're supposed to do. So here we have the same familiar theme that we have this idea of this cloud. This cloud has this ayin noon root. Anybody remember what the ayin is a picture of?
Yeah, I think knowledge.
Knowledge. Yes. And the noon. Anybody remember the noon? Because we have two noons here. Okay.
There's seed.
The seed. Yes. Or it can be seed,
Life.
fish, what? Life.
Activity.
Activity. It can even be another name for the Messiah, who is called Messiah ben Nun. But it has this idea of continuing seed. And so we have this idea of this word ayin to be that of a womb. Let's go a little bit further. Let's go back to that ayin a minute. So what sees? Well, our eyes see, but we've already been talking about spiritual eyes in this Torah portion. And the same spelling can indicate divining, soothsaying, fortune telling, magic, and witchcraft. There are two ways to see things. There are two kingdoms.
Mm-hmm.
One kingdom, there's a supernatural power of our king, but there's a power not greater than Yah's power, but there is a power in and of the enemy itself, and he has the counterfeit of discernment. He has the counterfeit of prophecy. He has the counterfeit of all that Yah has. And we need to remember that because the eye is the gateway. What was the first enchanter or soothsayer? Who was that? It was Hasatan, huh? In the garden. The Nakash, the serpent, the counterfeit, the all-seeing eye. Oh, I'd like to get into that. I didn't write all that stuff down, but there's no time. I was going to talk. That brings me back to frankincense and the good things that frankincense does when we see it in the incense, when we see it, which we see in this Torah portion, which develops a cloud, and how it pineal gland, that it really affects the pineal gland. It can heal some things there, which the counterfeit is the third eye that you see the occult playing with. Anyway, we'll have to go there some other time. But anyway, so when we look at this eye, this all-seeing eye, we also have this noon, which I told you has this idea of Messiah or fish or seed or life. But we have that, it is also associated with the prophetic nature of the kingdom of heaven. So let's keep this idea of a cloud in mind, and let's look at fire, because 9:16 has the conclusion of the chapter has this a dissertation about day and night, and the cloud covered it by day and the appearance of fire by night. So let's not escape fire, because fire, that word is, everybody knows it. What is it? Yeesh. Okay. So it's number 784.
You have to have the fire to have cloud.
Come on.
There you go. But yet his presence is synonymous with both. Isn't he the fire? I think that's what I talked about last
Yes,
week
he
in
is
the
fire.
message I gave. I said, he is the fire. He is the word, and the word spoken out is the fire, and we're supposed to carry the fire. So therefore, when we speak his word, we're speaking out the fire that will either purify or it will destroy. And then we should destroy everything that hypes itself up against the word of Yah, that goes against the word of Yah with his word. And we should bring life and purity to other things. That I'm not going to re-preach the message from last week, but ultimately he's the fire, he is the glory, he's the cloud, there's his presence. But when you put those words together, you have this idea in their gematria, you have 170 and 301, which I'm not going to belabor that because I know that can get big. Anyway, it would take more detail, but ultimately it's 471, which you put the cloud and the fire together, and that means it has the same value as towards truth. It also has the same value as Hagalgolet, which is Golgotha on Mount Moriah, where both Yeshua and Isaac were lifted up. Oh, there we have the idea of being lifted up again. Remember, our Messiah was lifted up. So truth, and who was lifted up? Our Yeshua, the man of fire, who is the menorah, who watched over Israel. But there's been a counterfeit watcher. He's watching.
He prowls.
He's been watching. He appears as an angel or a messenger of light. We've heard that and we know that. Is that new information? Absolutely not. None of this really is new. But the cloud, his presence is there, and and his power supersedes anything the enemy has. And when the enemy takes notice of you, that does mean you're doing the right thing. If he doesn't take notice of you, then I wonder, are we in the right place at the right time? Because what does a cloud do? Let's go back to this idea of the cloud, his glory. Rest in his glory. There we have this idea of covering. Again, one more time, because we see coverings here. And this cloud is a shelter. It's a protection from what? It's protection physically from the heat of the sun. I can't tell you what it feels like. We put the shade cloth up this week, and I normally want to take it off and on over my garden, but it's been so hot, and I haven't figured out how to do it yet by myself because we have a new design this year and it's not user friendly for me. But if I have to work outside, being under that shade cloth is wonderful. Being under his cloud in the midst of the desert heat, what was that like? It's a relief. It makes it bearable. He makes life bearable. He makes life livable. Without him, do we really have life, or not more abundantly?
We don't
No.
exist without him.
Because
we're walking zombies.
the sages themselves, and I don't like to bring them up a lot, but it goes along with what we've talked about, that glory. They talk about the cloud is synonymous with the Shekinah, or the Shekinah, as many of us learned originally. So our Messiah, through his atonement, is our covering, our protection, our shelter from the heat and the wrath of Yah. He is the one that will protect us from all of that. Because guess what? He's made it right. He through his blood, through his sacrifice, and through our teshuvah, we've been reconciled. So we're covered. And if you think this really in this cloud is mentioned 11 times, and there are 11 different spices used in the incense offering. I want us to, let me get back to that thought when I get there, but I want us to have this idea about something else the sages said, because they said that this idea also identified two distinct frames for the Messiah, when the Messiah would appear, when we're talking about poor and afflicted idea. So it says here in the Sanhedrin 98a, if they will be righteous, the Messiah will come on the clouds of heaven. And if they will not be righteous, he will come as a poor, afflicted man riding a donkey. Well, So cloud has the same root as poor and afflicted. That's odd, isn't it? Why would it have the same root? Because when you look at this quote, that's a little odd maybe, but the word for both clouds and poor and afflicted, there's always a reason that they come from the same place.
He was afflicted.
And he was poor when he came the first time.
I don't necessarily go with, all I know that everything that Daniel had stored up was brought before Messiah. I believe that's what probably funded him a lot of his life, as well as everything else that he said. But remember, the inheritance of Daniel was massive. And when we have this gold, frankincense, and myrrh picture,
That's probably just the tip of the iceberg.
that's the tip, as you said, Tammy. But tradition, I mean, in our tradition, our non-knowledgeable tradition back in the day, that's sort of the thing we carried it with. Our Messiah came as a man. He's a king, but he's a man. But he is also the cloud. He's the covering, and he did take on the condition of man. And so that means he did experience affliction. He did experience the very things we experience. But the sages ultimately didn't recognize it. But you go back to this noon, this fish, and this anon, this cloud, with that double letter.
Well, he may have had all that wealth, but he came and considered himself as poor because that way the common people could relate to him.
Right. And we don't know how or what or all the specifics of that. We know what happened when he was young. So, and so how that connects, I don't know. But here we have this idea of this cloud and the incense offering. Let's just look at that, because we were talking about the spices. And so this other connection with the cloud is that incense offering that we've already mentioned. And I've already talked about when a room fills with the smoke, it's like you're in a cloud, right? So and smoke, or what appears to be smoke, is always an indication of there's going to be fire. And if he is the fire and he is the cloud, there's it's once more pointing towards his glory. It's once more pointing towards his presence.
And something rising.
And something rising up, which ascending, something, it goes back to the very beginning of our Torah portion. So when we think about the word cloud and its usage, we can go back to Leviticus 16 explains the ceremony of the high priest at Yom Kippur, and the atonement service was performed how many times? Once a year in the Holy of Holies. And that was that incense mixture that we were alluding to. So the day before Yom Kippur, the incense would actually be mixed and it would be ground up so that it would be as fine as possible. And the high priest first took a shovel of burning coals from the altar in his right hand, and then a ladle with a specifically ground incense in his left. And once he entered the Holy of Holies, he poured out the incense onto the fire, and it remained there until the incense cloud rose up and it completely covered the ark. Here, one more time, we hear that word covered again. Mm-hmm. So it completely covered the ark. And the cloud described here was the smoke from the incense. But what would we relate it to? His very presence one more time. The smoke had to cover the ark cover, actually, so the high priest would not see his very presence. It says that no one has seen him and lived. Yet we can see Yeshua, but Yahweh himself, no. And so Leviticus 16:2 says, for in a cloud anon I shall be seen on the ark cover. And then Leviticus 16:13 says, he shall place the incense upon the fire before Adonai, so as to cover the cloud, the anon of the incense, over the ark cover, in order that he not die. So this 11th ingredient of the incense, can anybody say that? Ma'ale Hashan. The ingredient. I think I have it here. How are you supposed to say it? Ma'ale Ashan. Okay. So it ultimately made the smoke heavy in order to create an actual cloud. So this ingredient, this mystery ingredient, caused this smoke to be heavy to create the cloud. And it was a smoke producer, or a cloud producer. Okay, sorry, I have to take a little tiny rabbit trail because Jonathan, when he was young, we would be driving, specifically we go to Houston, and there was a factory when you went through the Dallas route.
Electra, right? It's a big, it used to have a major power plant there, and it was a coal-fired power plant. And so
Probably been shut down.
it's been shut down, but it would produce these humongous white steam coming out of it, and on a winter day, on a
But it was
cold day,
almost all the time whenever we were driving.
it produced so much of the steam going up, into the sky. We would call, hey,
No, we didn't. He's the one that made that up.
it's a,
Jonathan
it's a cloud
said-
factory.
Jonathan, the first time, and from then on, he always said, there's the cloud. He says, look, Mom, look, Dad, it's a cloud factory. And so think about that. Let's relate that. Should we be a cloud factory? Should we have him burning within us, his word being within us, and he's covering us with his presence, with his glory, that ultimately, because his word is the light within us and shining wherever we go, that Anon, that Ish is within us, his very presence, his Shekinah, that wherever we go, we look like a cloud factory because we're being led by his presence, led by his cloud, led by his glory. And we're not going to stay behind where the cloud was yesterday. We're going to go forward where it is right now. In fact, we'll be willing if we have to change positions to go where it's going to go tomorrow and not be stuck in our tradition of old because it's comfortable, because it's easy. And that goes back to what we're saying about even following what we're following right now. The cloud is here. The restoration of the rod of Aaron is here. So what we're doing is we're willing to do that and follow that priestly calendar, because that's where the cloud's going, even though it's hard, even though it may cause us to be rejected, even though it may cause people to leave us. We're going to go where his presence is and where his glory's at. We're not going to remain at the old manna, because the manna was fed daily. The old stuff is yesterday's. It gets rotten. He's leading us somewhere else. Are we going to follow the cloud because we look like a cloud factory, because we've got his glory all around us?
Yes.
John.
Because who's got us? Who's got us? He's got us. Don't worry about nobody shows up. He's got us. He has got this. He has got this.
So you said that the cloud is connected to the poor and the afflicted. Zephaniah 3:12 says, I will also leave in the midst of thee an afflicted and poor people, and they shall trust in the name of Yahweh. And also Psalm 140 verse 12, I know that Yahweh will maintain the cause of the afflicted and the right of the poor. So that's where we want to be. We want to be right there in the middle of the cloud, because he hears us. It's time. It's it.
You can do it.
Huh?
You can do it.
I can do what? I can do what? Oh, you're getting up and leaving. We're going to close. Okay. And I'm on camera.
Remind everybody about our service.
Okay. Tell them about it, Sandy. 3 p.m. Come back Central Time. So in less than an hour, we will be back with some time of praise and worship and ministry and the message. And we want you to be with us to continue this and enter into the cloud with us today. I'm really excited about it. We've had such amazing times, and I'm not just saying I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just saying Yahweh has given us great favor, extending his scepter, and his presence has been in the house. We want you to be part of it, and we'll see you in about an hour.
Yeah.
So Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shall we pray and close? Father, we thank you for our gathering and our time together, and we're just so grateful for your presence and the cloud and
Your
showing
movement.
us these
Yes.
things of how to live
Yes, God.
and to live as free people before you. And so, Father, we just
Sure.
ask for your presence, we just want you.
More.
We're just
More
excited
of you.
because you're enthroned upon our praises. So we enter in this time of praise and worship, that Father, that we will ascend with you to the holy place. And that's where we want to be. We want to be where you are. We honor you and bless you in the name of Yeshua. Amen.
Ooh.